and to the extent that they're funneling west to get up to parts, places to the north, the Coachella area, that kind of thing.
But you got a big airbase over there, lots of noise.
It's not just
you bring up a
noise
good point, though, that, Alan, you participated in our 20-year plan where one of our goals for 111, as you mentioned, is to make that an expressway and take out all the stoplights and make overpasses, but obviously that takes funding. And then eventually, once the bypass is complete, that could make this particular project obsolete. But at this point in time, just by what we've heard in our 20-year plan, this is what the locals are wanting. In particular, obviously, the city of Westmoreland, but so that.
The only way I see it could be built would be for China to come in and pay for it.
Yeah, that's
As a toll road. As a toll road. I mean, Imperial County is not going to ever cost the money to do it. It's gonna
from the Navy standpoint, we know the road improvements will bring development. It's almost inevitable. If you see a big road and the truck stop wants to come in.
Could be like an SR7 over there, with the easements on both sides.
Well, that we can work on that.
Depending on how, there's an issue that came up during the 20-year plan discussions that it came up kind of late in the tax or in the meetings, and it never really kind of got the credit that I think it deserved, and that's to look hard at land use planning in Calexico. Frankly, it would be cheaper, it's not a proposal, but it would be cheaper to buy every truck parking lot on the west side of Calexico and give them a facility on the east side of Calexico than it would cost to improve the transportation network to service all the truck operations on the west side of Calexico. And that's what, the fact that there's so much trucking activity, customs house activity on the west side of Calexico just feeds all the traffic on 98. And I don't know, if there's a way or a setting to bring that up, I think that's kind of a missed opportunity.
This is the first time I've heard about the Silicon border issue that far to the west. And if they're using Drew Road, that's that hits 8 right at our front door, essentially. And that's all of a sudden a major concern I'll be discussing with you guys. Because, again, if you've got an intersection, if Drew Road's coming up and intersecting with 8, then all of a sudden,
Well, you've got good contact right by you, Mr. Kudu, and familiar with that, right?
Very familiar with
So,
again, we don't have any authority to do anything. We're just very concerned about the potential. Now that's about a mile from directly underneath our place.
more stuff going on.
Yeah. So
And then just, I don't know if you've been made aware of this. There was a study, Rosa, help me if I'm getting my text confused, but there was a project that started and ended up being kind of discontinued, looking at a new south corridor through the valley, a new north-south corridor, just El Centro de Calexico, kind of in that area. And there was a lot of modeling that Caltrans provided and some identification of alternatives. One that was kind of looking favorable would start at Calexico, kind of go up Jasper Road, and then follow a diagonal path. There's a canal, I think it's the Elder maybe. It's a canal that runs past Camacho's, and it ends at the same point that Forrester Road ends. They kind of meet. Those are familiar with the county country roads. That's a potential route. You got to be aware of them. There's been some kind of some study and some alternatives done, and that work product might benefit you as you're kind of getting into this.
in your contact with him.
Have you spoken to the Homeland Security or GSA regarding the expansion of the Calexico Old Port of Entry, which is the old commercial port, affectionately referred to as in the hole, which is sort of a little dip. There's discussions, I've been told there are discussions of putting in 6 or 7 century lanes and having 3 regular lanes of traffic, and then closing down the downtown port of entry for vehicles if you pedestrian.
Right.
And I guess the ramification of that would be, again, to have better flow through the area. But at the end of the day, will that increase the amount of truck trips on a daily basis? And I don't know if that would necessarily change the results of our analysis of Forrester, because if people are going to bypass it, they're going to bypass. If they're going to use Forrester as a bypass, then they're going to use Forrester as a bypass. I don't know if any modifications to the existing facility would necessarily change our analysis.
So are you not looking at traffic, you're just looking at trucks?
We're looking at everything, but the long-range modeling should take these things into consideration.
But he does bring up a good point. But at this point, GSA's current traffic analysis or circulation, when IVAG and Caltrans looked at it, it was, we didn't accept it. So GSA, we funded or contracted out with KOA to do an updated thorough traffic analysis of the potential reopening. Unfortunately, it just began, 2, maybe 3 months ago, and maybe we'll have to follow up with KOA and see if they have some preliminary traffic counts or analysis out there. But that could potentially have an effect, and we'll have to follow up
Well,
on that.
it's just another potential impact because you could have traffic going up 98 and over to Forrester.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, and if you look at the Navy's concerns about going up to 8, it may be that the existing Highway 98 becomes more of an artery for the Silicon border and for the new, the expanded border crossing across it.
And it brings up a good point, because we're really depending on the city to decide how their circulation will go with this either. And I know there's certain designated lanes that will feed onto county roads or out, there's certain people that don't want to go inside the city, just want to get out, and they will start using, and if they're from out of county or out of the region, it will have some potential impact.
But it's the traffic that doesn't live here that I've been thinking
No,
about.
that's
I'm kind of real curious about, because that's a lot of money that the communities need to get, from the travelers, north-south. And that's because I think otherwise they're just looking at Forrester, they're looking at 111, and you have to know the route beforehand, to plan it out. Because otherwise their maps are going to tell, I have a GPS in my Prius and it says, it has no concept of taking me from El Centro north to Los Angeles. It says go through San Diego. And to me, that's a big major problem right there.
You need a new mapping system.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
Well, are you taking consideration this study, that they're doing on whether to allow Mexican-owned trucks to go in the United States and for the U.S. trucks to go into Mexico? That's a big political issue, and the study is being done under clouded conditions, but it's to determine if they do allow free movement of Mexican-owned trucks and U.S.-owned trucks back and forth. It may be that these big trucking companies that are located on the west side of Raleigh may not need those central points where they change trucks and tractors and so forth. That they just will leave the east port of entry and not go to the trucking where they have to change drivers and change tractors.
What you're talking about is like a central distribution area.
It's a federal.
NAFTA.
Yeah.
It's implementation, NAFTA.
Yes, NAFTA.
Which I personally doubt if it's going to go any farther. There doesn't seem to be much involvement with Mexican companies or U.S. companies in the